So chapter 12 of Boruto Vortex is finally here, and let's just say that it's one of the best chapters we've had in a while. Because not only did it have Boruto destroying Hidari using Rasengan Uzuhiko, but it also had Boruto almost dying at the end portion of the chapter, along with the mystery element in regards to the 10 tails, the chakra fruit, and even Rasengan Uzuhiko itself. So we have a lot to discuss, but of course we're gonna start from the top. So the person on the cover is Sumire, but she does absolutely nothing in the chapter, as I said in the spoiler review. But this might be in relation to something that happens in the upcoming chapter, which has happened before, so let's give it some time. But yeah, the title of the chapter is Thorn Spirit, which actually references what happens with Hidari later on in this chapter. So we're gonna get to that point soon. Now the first panel shows Boruto angrily standing before Hidari, which follows him saving Sarada and Himawari. Boruto then proceeds to lay down Himawari and tells Konohamaru to protect her, and that's when Hidari attacked him by transforming his hand into a makeshift scythe, if that's how it's pronounced. But yeah, Boruto blocked it using his sword, which is amplified by his own chakra. This is confirmed in Boruto's databook, and this is also something that stems from the Naruto series, so it isn't anything new. Along with the fact that this is Sasuke's Kusanagi blade, which means it's one of the strongest blades in the entire universe. So think of it like maybe vibranium or adamantium from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Boruto being able to block Hidari's attack using this sword isn't anything far-fetched. But yeah, Boruto then proceeds to activate a new jutsu called Futon Topa, which actually translates to wind style breakthrough. So this ability was actually created by Orochimaru, which he then gave to Mitsuki. So it isn't necessarily new to the series, but it's new to Boruto. What I will say is that it's not that different from Gale Palm. It's pretty much using wind to push away opponents or targets, or to just push yourself in a direction. And even though Boruto typically uses Gale Palm to just increase his speed by pushing himself forward, he has used it to attack others as well, similar to when he used it to push away Naruto in chapter 66. So if you thought this was Gale Palm initially, nothing really changes, to be honest. But yeah, Hidari wasn't really damaged by this. He was able to find his footing, then teleported into one of his claw marks. That is when we switched over to Kawaki saying that Boruto's presence moved locations in a split second. It must be space-time ninjutsu. Right now he's probably in the spot where Team 10's encounter first started, which means the village. Delta then says that I don't see Himawari anywhere. Team 10 is gone too. Can you hear me, sensory unit? Are they alright? The sensory unit then replied saying that Team 10 is carrying their wounded towards the new city, which I think is in reference to the pretty buildings that we never visited even once in the Boruto manga for some reason. I'd like to know how that looks, to be honest, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe that happens in the next chapter. But yeah, he then says that it seems like Himawari was able to rendezvous with Konohamaru and Sarada. Boruto is also there. Delta then says, there you have it, what are you gonna do? And we see that Kawaki is looking at Jura, and I'm sure Jura knows that he's there, but he doesn't care. And Kawaki's like, that bastard, standing there all smug, what is he planning? So Kawaki looks pretty concerned. He looks afraid of Jura, I think, and he isn't going to approach him based on what happens later on in the chapter. So I guess you could say Kawaki ran from Jura, but I'm not gonna knock him for this because of course Kawaki knows that he can't fight Jura, and the only reason why he went there to fight him is because he thought Himawari was there. So if Himawari isn't there and Jura is there by himself, why would he fight him? You know, it just doesn't make sense. So Kawaki's actually making the correct decision at this point. So yeah, moving on. So we then switch back to the village with Konohamaru asking Boruto, what are you thinking? Going in and out of the village all nonchalant. Don't you understand your position here? Sarada then steps in, pretty much telling Konohamaru to stop badgering Boruto, then asked him if he didn't see what happened. What would have happened to me if Boruto didn't come? And Konohamaru, being smart, a very intelligent person, unlike a certain person that I will not name, pretty much understood the situation immediately. He then pretty much tells them to be careful because it seems like Hidari can manipulate the claw marks similar to code. Boruto then turns to Nishi and says, hey you're from the sensor unit, right? Focus on sensing the claw grimes in the area. Don't let even the slightest trace of chakra slip past you. Nishi then says, how dare you order me around even though you're a criminal. Because we have to remember that Nishi believes that Boruto killed the 7th Hokage, so you can somewhat understand why, you know, he's kinda apprehensive here. But yeah, Boruto of course ignores him, and Sumire taps in saying that this guy is clearly targeting Sarada. Even though Konohamaru was point blank range, he still went straight for Sarada. Sarada then taps in to say that he's planning to devour me, or at least that's what he said. And with those moves, he has a connection, doesn't it, to Papa becoming a tree, which of course is referring to the Chidori. Konohamaru then says, becoming a tree? Hold on a second. By trees, do you mean the same thing that Moegi was turned into? Boruto then goes on to say that this guy was formed on the basis of Uncle Sasuke's chakra, but don't pay too much attention to that. There's no need to hold back. All we gotta do is focus on taking him down in order to save Master, in order to save Uncle Sasuke. Now Konohamaru is a bit perplexed by this. He's like, yo, where did you get this information from, Boruto? Boruto then tells him, I'm telling you to focus, Konohamaru. You'll get killed if you don't. That's when the clawgrams appeared using the claw marks laid down by Hidari. Boruto then tells Sarada that I'll do my best to reduce their numbers. That hooded guy's final goal is you. Only counter attacks that come your way. So it's pretty much telling her not to go on the attack, be on the defensive because she's the target. We then see Boruto go on the attack, defeating multiple clawgrams, cutting them down one by one. That's when one single clawgram went after Sarada. She then tries to kick it in the stomach, but Hidari smartly used one of the claw marks on the stomach of the clawgram to grab onto Sarada's leg. It then seems like Sarada is about to actually get absorbed by Hidari, but Boruto saved her by throwing a shuriken at the clawgram Hidari spawned from, then teleported above him using Flying Thunder God and landed a Rasengan on his right shoulder, destroying most of it. Hidari then slipped into his claw mark and teleported to the Shinju dimension. Now I say Shinju dimension because we have no idea where this is, but this is where we saw the black box initially in chapter 5, I believe. So this is pretty much the same location. Now we see that Hidari then starts to pull vines towards him, and they pretty much start to reconstruct his body, even the claw marks. So I do find this very, very interesting. Now this could be that the Ten Tails is still fully there, and these are just portions of the Ten Tails, because we initially thought that the Ten Tails itself separated into these entities, but it could be that the Ten Tails body is still present and they just moved it to a different location using the claw mark. But we'll have to wait and see, but this is very interesting to me. Now I did get some comments on the spoiler review saying that Hidari doesn't have regen because he had to teleport to this dimension to get healed. But what I will say is that we literally did see him heal himself in the prior chapter. So it could be the case that he just can't heal this type of damage, or he just needs this to heal quicker because of the extent of the damages. We have no idea. But it could also be the case that the first time we saw him heal in chapter 11, when he slipped through the claw mark, he actually went to this dimension and came back quickly. I think that is less likely. So it could be the case that he just has some level of regen, but not to the extent of, let's say, Jubidara or even Naruto or Himawari. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Hidari then returned pretty quickly and teleported behind Sarada and Boruto, which actually supports the theory that he actually went to that dimension quickly in chapter 11 and healed and came back. But I digress, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Hidari is now again here, and he uses his Renegon because he shows the visual markers on the panel to spawn more claw marks. He then proceeds to recede into the claw marks once again, and Sarada tells Boruto to fly up into the air. She then says that she'll draw his attention to the ground, and when he shows himself, Boruto should get him with another Rasengan. Boruto then says, I can't, flying isn't an option. I'll use Uzuhiko instead, at maximum output. I'll finish him in one blow. Boruto then proceeds to explain that it uses the rotation and revolution of the planet, along with the power of centrifugal force. It's a new Rasengan that I call the chakra of the planet. She then proceeds to ask him if he can take him down without him running off into his clawgrams in one hit. Boruto then replied saying that it shouldn't be a problem, as long as I do it without holding back. At any rate, the power of Uzuhiko is limitless. And you know what's funny about this? When Boruto first did Rasengan Uzuhiko, everyone was comparing it to Gojo from JJK with Infinity. So basically no one is able to touch Gojo because of his curse technique, which is called the Limitless. So them now saying that this Rasengan is limitless, and we also know that no one can touch Boruto because of the Coriolis effect caused by this ability. I can definitely see what Kishimoto is doing here. I can see the similarities, okay? That's all I'm saying. Now Boruto then goes on to say, but I have to take in the planet's chakra using both feet, directly from the soil. That's why I can't fly. And if I'm going to take him down with one hit, I need that much more chakra. So pretty much this expanded explanation of Rasengan Uzuhiko actually depowers Boruto, which a lot of people aren't seeing here, because if the strength of this Rasengan depends on the power of the planet, this isn't actually Boruto's power. So Boruto being able to destroy Hidari using this Rasengan isn't an indication of Boruto's power level. this actually indicates the strength of the planet itself. So when Boruto says that the power of Uzuhiko is limitless and that the power stems from the planet, it's not that the power is actually limitless in the sense of the word, it's actually a name fallacy, because the chakra of a planet isn't actually limitless. And we know this because the Ten Tails destroys planets by absorbing their chakra and they become barren. So yeah, the power of the planet isn't limitless, so the Rasengan also isn't limitless. It's just limitless based on what Boruto can now currently comprehend. It's like when Naruto said that the power of the Ten Tails was immeasurable, when it's actually immeasurable to him because he couldn't measure it. But I'm sure someone far stronger than Naruto or the Ten Tails itself could actually measure that power, if you get what I mean. But yeah, aside from this, the chapter actually introduces some limitations to the ability in a sense, because Boruto has to remain rooted on the ground with both feet in order to charge up the ability. So you can pretty much stop the ability by forcing Boruto to jump or dodge an attack or just move, you know, so it's not that difficult to do. But of course, that depends on the power level of his opponent. But yeah, that's just what I'm getting from this chapter. But yeah, we also see that Hidari tried to attack Boruto from behind using the claw mark, which is similar to what he did to Sarada in the prior chapter, but Konohamaru saw this and he jumped in between them and used his new Rasengan to block it as well. Now this ability is obviously way weaker than the actual Chidori, because we saw what that did to Konohamaru. He actually sent him flying into the building behind him. So this ability isn't anything of note per se, but I will say that Konohamaru's Rasengan looks way bigger than it did before, so maybe that's why. But of course, this is just me speculating. Now Boruto isn't too pleased with this. He then asked him if he didn't tell him to watch over Himawari. He then replied saying, "I decide what I want to prioritize. If you have time to complain, then complete your jutsu." That's when Hidari sneaks Sarada once again from behind using the claw marks, but Sarada is prepared this time and she uses the Chidori stream to shock him, or electrocute him. She then proceeds to throw him towards Boruto, which is very disrespectful by the way, and then asks him if the Rasengan is ready. Boruto then says, "To be honest with you, it's not fully charged as yet, but I've gotta do it now." He then hits Hidari with the Rasengan, and then we see this big wind funnel charging around Boruto's legs, which is similar to what happened with Code, but this time it's massive around his body. It then pretty much pushed him into the sky and literally ripped his body apart. Now this isn't an explosion similar to Rasen Shuriken, but it does seem to be ripping his body apart using the wind element. We then see that all that's left of Hidari's body is his head and his left hand. He then tried to fly into his claw mark because he's still very much alive, and Boruto tried to rush after him, but of course he couldn't make it in time. But just as he's about to enter the claw mark, it just disappeared. And that's when a Kawaki appeared from nowhere standing above Hidari. He then pinned him down using his hand, and then he's like, "Yo, seems like you're in pain. I'll put you out of your misery." Kawaki then proceeds to use a chakra blast, it seems, and just vaporizes Hidari's entire body. And then he's like standing there all cool as if he just defeated Shiba Otsutsuki or something, right? The guy was literally half dead, bro. Calm down, okay? Oh, by the way, before we move on to the next portion of the chapter here, I wanted to address the Sarada point, which is her not using the Sharingan. I first noticed this when Boruto told her to be on guard because she's Hidari's target. So I guess you'd assume that she would activate the Sharingan to perceive Hidari appearing from one of the claw marks, but she didn't. And this actually resulted in her getting caught by Hidari. And this actually played out later on again when Hidari popped out from the claw mark once again and grabbed her and tried to absorb her. Now she was able to defend herself using the Chidori stream, but she wouldn't have been caught in the first place if she had the Sharingan active. And the reason being is that the Rasengan does enhance your perception, which allows you to perceive counterattacks or just attacks in general. So it somewhat seems like future sight, but in actuality it's just perceiving someone's next movement based on the slight twitches in their muscle fiber. So if she had the Sharingan active in both of these cases, she would have been able to dodge him because she would have seen the attack before it actually landed. So I'm not sure why she isn't using it. She did use it in the prior chapter briefly, then turn it off immediately. Now it could be the case that Sarada has some stamina issue, which would explain why she turns it off immediately after using it. But this didn't stop her from using it in part 1, especially in the anime. So I'm not sure what's going on here. But one of my subscribers did comment on the spoiler video saying that it is possible that she's training to use the Byakugo seal, which means that she needs to conserve her chakra. And the Sharingan does eat at your chakra to some degree. So it might be the case that that's what's happening here. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. There's no confirmation, we're just speculating, of course. But yeah, going back to present time, you see that Kawaki was able to destroy Hidari, but then the dust particles from his body or the remains started to form this chakra fruit. So it looks like a chakra fruit, but it has some thorns in it, and also has a Renegon at the bottom. So this is obviously a different type of fruit. Now Boruto then grabbed it and reached out to Kashin Koji. He's like, what do you think? Is this the right thing? Kashin Koji then says, object confirmed. There's no mistaking it. It's the same as what I saw, the soul thorn. Now this is very, very interesting to me, right? Because if he's saying that this is what he saw, and we saw that this was formed by someone killing a Shinju, does this mean that Kashin Koji and Boruto killed a Shinju? Or does it mean that Kashin Koji killed a Shinju? And who was this Shinju? So many questions, which I'm probably going to save for a video by itself, of course. But just to address it briefly, it does seem like they did fight a Shinju before and was able to defeat it. And that Shinju might have been Orochimaru, but of course we'll have to wait and see. Now if Boruto was the one who said it, I could have just said that Boruto saw it in the future using his Byakugan, but since Kashin Koji is saying that he saw it and confirming it to Boruto, I don't think Kashin Koji has future sight, so it had to have been something that happened in present time. So this is very, very interesting. Now Kawaki then of course grabbed onto Boruto's collar because he loves doing that, and then pretty much asked him to explain what the thorn fruit is. Boruto then said that it's something that he needs in order to save his master who got turned into a tree, or so I've heard. He then said, if you understand, let go of me, Kawaki. If you don't, I'll cut off your arm. Kawaki then said, who did you hear it from? Who's your informant? And that's when something pierces Boruto's chest, and it's then revealed to be Jura sniping him from miles away, from the same location where they fought Himawari, which by the way is outside of the village, so it's absolutely insane. Boruto then falls to the ground and everyone runs over to him and they're asking what's going on. Kawaki then says, Delta, what's happening over there? And she's like, is this guy for real? Sniping him from this range? But of course it looks like Boruto is going to be fine because Jura then says that he missed his vitals. Now Sarada then remembers what Boruto said about the fruit being able to save his master, which is Sasuke, so she tries to grab it herself. But Jura wasn't having any of that, so he just sniped her right hand, so she's fine for the most part. That's when the fruit just started to float or levitate, and then it flew towards Jura. And I know most of you guys are probably saying that Jura used universal pull from his Renegon, but he didn't actually move his hand. It seems like it just flew towards him naturally. Now I will say that it is possible that he doesn't need to move his hand because we've seen Jura do things with the Renegon and the Bijuu Bomb, which doesn't make any sense. So it could be that his universal pull is different, but I don't know, it just seems like because Jura is a Shinju and Hidari is a Shinju, that he just went towards Jura. I don't know, we'll see. But we then see that Jura is a bit concerned, because he then goes on to say, darn that Boruto. So he knows about the soul thorns. That makes him more of a threat than I previously assumed. Well then, Kawaki alone is more than enough to serve as food for the Ten-Tails. Otsutsuki Boruto, I've decided to kill you. The side text then says, Jura's sniping skills is very fearsome. What will happen to those who try to free Sasuke? And that's where the chapter ends. So yeah, the chapter was pretty amazing. As I said in the beginning, the chapter does have, you know, the spectacle and the fighting that everyone loves. But for me personally, I love the lore and the story a bit more. So this new information on Rasengan Uzuhiko, which expands what the ability can do, and that means that I need to do a video explaining Rasengan Uzuhiko again that has the updated information. And it also added this lore of the thorn fruits, and I find that very, very interesting because these seem to be chakra fruits, but they're not actually chakra fruits. So it's more like a core for the Shinju, which if you guys read Kaiju number 8, which you guys should do by the way, but the Kaijus possess cores that you can destroy in order to kill the Kaiju. So that seems to be the case here as well. So I do find that very interesting. But what's more interesting is what's going to happen in the upcoming chapter, because of course Boruto is out, and this means that Momoshiki might resurface, because that's usually how it occurs. Boruto gets damaged or badly injured and Momoshiki takes over. So that might happen here as well. I don't see Kawaki and Sarada defeating Jura, and Jura is dead set on killing Boruto as he just stated. So the only way Boruto stands against Jura is if Himawari wakes up and heals Boruto, or if Momoshiki does it. So I think the latter is more likely, so I guess we're gonna see Momoshiki in the upcoming chapter. But I do also think that we might see the Mangekyo Sharingan. Sarada might awaken it and protect Boruto, but then she gets beat up because she isn't strong enough, and that's when Momoshiki takes over. So I guess we'll see what happens, but this chapter is pretty good. Let me know your thoughts down below. Drop a like if you like the video and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.